So welcome everyone to our monthly national virtual gathering. We stream this live here the first Wednesday of every month, and then our replays are posted on our YouTube channel 2 weeks after. So the National Ladies Homestead Gathering is a national nonprofit where women share and celebrate all things homesteading. So whether you're raising goats or growing herbs on your apartment balcony, there is something here for everyone, and you belong to our community. We currently have 24 chapters nationwide, and we're growing, and we also have a vibrant online community. And those of you that are joining on our Mighty Networks platform, and that's exactly where you need to be to connect with ladies from all across the country. So if you would like to join NLHG, go to www.nlhg.org, and it is completely free. So the purpose of the National Ladies Homestead Gathering is to empower women through homesteading, and our mission is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. So my name is Nancy. I am your host or hostess this evening, and I am the media director for NLHG, and I'm so glad to have you all here tonight. A couple quick announcements. Our VIP sponsor spotlight this month is C90 Ocean Minerals. So C90 provides a full spectrum of natural minerals and trace elements sourced directly from the ocean. These minerals help bring balance back to the homestead by supporting soil structure, fertility, pasture quality, animal mineral intake, and wellness, and garden growth. And our VIP members, if they're interested in purchasing anything from C90, our VIP members get 15% off all purchases, and the details can be found in our VIP vault under member discounts. If you'd like to support NLHG and enjoy all these exclusive discounts and resources, you could join as a VIP or a very invested partner for just $35 a year. And it just helps support the platforms like Mighty Networks and us to bring you this content. And don't forget to check out the swag shop. It's in Mighty Networks. We still have some of the Christmas swag. So if you guys want to go out there and start your 2026 Christmas shopping early, you can still grab some of those really, really cute Christmas shirts, and there's some aprons and bags and different things like that. So just a couple housekeeping, please post all of your questions in the chat, and then we will pull the questions and do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. So let's welcome tonight's guest speaker, Beth Dougherty. So I am going to bring her on here. It takes just a second for her to join. And I'm going to ask Beth a couple icebreaker questions, and then we'll get started.
Have you got me?
No,
there?
Your screen, I can hear you, but your screen is black.
Okay.
But
I can see me, so it looks like my camera thinks I'm there, and I think I'm there because we had spent an hour trying to sort this out, didn't we?
We did, and that is.
It's saying I'm up, so I hit
Oh,
stop
now
video.
I
hit start video.
There
Am I
you
back?
go. Yay!
Hooray. Okay.
Yay,
Let's hope I
we can
stay
see
there.
you. Okay. So, okay, the two icebreaker questions that I had for you that I like to ask all of our speakers is, what does homesteading mean to you personally, and how has it shaped your everyday life?
I think for me, homesteading it's not a response to a culture that has succumbed to technology and become less and less humane. It's not really a response to that because it comes before that. Homesteading to me is the answer to our Genesis chapter 1 call to, in the image and likeness of God, care for the earth. So homesteading is simply the enactment of the thing that makes us human and makes us like God. And tell me the second half of the question again.
And how has it shaped your everyday life?
Yeah, that answer would have to have you following me around for, a week, because my husband and I have done, we began becoming homesteaders the minute we got married, and that was 40 years ago. So
it's just part of your life.
When you get to a point where you've forgotten what the questions are.
Yes.
I've forgotten what the questions are. So it is my life, and that makes me really happy.
Okay,
I feel very blessed to be able to live like that.
Yeah, and I think just hearing you talk in the past, and just the passion that you and Sean have, and the knowledge and everything on how you treat the land and your animals and everything, it's a beautiful story that you get to share with everyone. So I'm really excited to have you here tonight to share that with all of us. The second quick question is, what is the biggest mindset shift homesteaders need to make when it comes to feed costs?
I think we need to remember that all of this, the things that we are homesteading to take care of, all of this started with God and not with a cash economy. That God designed a world that by its very nature feeds itself and deals with all its own needs and all of its own waste products. So by the fact that we're here and that the various animals and plants that exist are here, we know they are successful in nature. So when we're looking at feed costs, we need to always remember there is no necessary cash expenditure here. What we're trying to do is figure out how God intended things to eat and find those things naturally in our environment.
That's great. And that's what I remember from you talking about this subject at the conference. So I'm super excited for you to share more on that with our ladies. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and turn off the camera. And you can go ahead with your presentation, Beth.
Great. So hi, everybody. And I am really honored to be here and part of your event. And I wish we could all sit down around my dining room table, which is pretty big, and enjoy coffee, but let's pretend we're doing that. The first thing I should do is introduce myself, because Sean and I are not well-known YouTube phenomena. We are just homesteaders like you who happen to write books about it and are privileged to get to travel around and talk to people about how we homestead. So a little bit about our farm. We have been homesteading all our married lives, which is about 40 years. Our home farm is about 27 acres, about maybe 7, if you want to stretch it, are actually usable. Most of it is trees up steep hills. We also have at least 30 acres up the road at a convent about a mile up the road. And that's all grass. We, on that, we keep 26 bovines at the moment. The cow herd hovers around 25 cows. And presently, because it's the middle of winter, we're milking just 2 of those. We also keep some pigs and chickens and dogs and cats. We grow 95% of what the humans eat on this farm, and also 95% of what the animals eat on this farm. That for me is noteworthy. Our goal from the beginning was to farm like our great-grandparents with as few off-farm inputs as possible. When we started out, we kept looking for the book that would teach us how to do that, and we never found it. So in 2014, we wrote this, The Independent Farmstead, which was published by Chelsea Green Publishing. And now Chelsea Green has us doing a series, the first of which is One Cow Revolution, which is all about keeping dairy cows. And if there's one thing we love to talk about, is how to farm without inputs, and that's what we're going to do today. So maybe the first question is to say, why do we want the farm to feed itself? Obviously, money is in there. Feed costs money, and there's often a spouse somewhere in the picture kicking and screaming, or at least grumbling about the money that goes out of the house to buy feed. Another reason is that the homestead that buys feed to keep its animals alive is every bit as much dependent upon petroleum and the modern economy as a household that buys all its food. But I think even beyond those two reasons, we need to look at a third one, which is homesteading without input feels right. It feels properly ordered. But to eliminate the need for money on a homestead, what you have to do is design the homestead the way God designed the world, as an ecosystem. So think about an abandoned field or a vacant lot. Say the vacant lot you drive by on your way to work or on your way to church. That's an ecosystem. Everything that lives there, all the plants and animals, are fed, the plants photosynthesize, death and decay happens there, defecation happens there, and it's all incorporated. And the way you can tell it's a working ecosystem is it doesn't change very quickly. I mean, like last year, it probably looked pretty much the way it does this year, and next year it'll look pretty much the same. It might slowly get more and more overgrown, but those changes aren't cataclysmic. Everything in that space is receiving its energy from the sunlight that falls on that space. It's not importing and it's not exporting. What if you could run your homestead like that? A self-renewing, a self-productive system that doesn't need any inputs. That's how God designed the world. That's how he taught our first parents how to farm. All the parts work together. So what we want to talk about is the pattern of an ecosystemic farm and how you build them. Build one so that your farm will do the two things that homesteaders need a farm to do. The first one is to feed us. The second one is like it. It's to be fertile so it can feed us next year. Those are two steps. We want farms that are producing food now and are also laying down energy to restore the soil and the fertility in the soil so that next year and the year after and the year after and the year after, we and our children and all our progeny going into the future until God comes again also get to eat. That's the fulfillment of our biblical mandate to subdue the earth and take care of it. So first, a little science. Where does all the energy we need for food and fertility, where's that going to come from? Remember your high school or even your grade school science lessons. All life energy on the planet is sunlight. There are a few exceptions, but they don't really matter. Every living thing pretty much exists because plants photosynthesize. Plants use sunlight to split water and carbon dioxide and reassemble them so that they got off oxygen for us to breathe, and they build complex carbohydrates out of the carbon and the hydrogen and build their plant bodies and make things like starch and sugar and fiber. Every other living thing, anything that isn't a green plant, things like bugs and birds and elephants and you and me, we all have to use energy that came from plants that photosynthesize. Some part of those complex carbohydrates that they built. So with that in mind, now we can think about our own farms and homesteads. First, let's look at the different options we've got. Typically, we're looking at 3 different landscape types, right? We're looking at our gardens or our tilled land. We might be looking at woods or orchards or vineyards. So those are permanent food sources. And we're looking at grass. So three types of land: tilled land, land with trees on it, grasslands. How well do those, so those are the 3 things we've got to work with. And the first question is going to be, how well do they produce people food? And the answer is, well, plowed land produces a lot of calories over the growing season if we plant stuff. Trees, if it's an apple tree or a pecan tree, it produces some food seasonally. Not a lot of food, but some. Grass produces no people food at all. So we tend to prioritize our land use in that order. We say, oh, I want to grow food, so I'm going to plant a garden, or I'm going to put in an orchard, because those seem to us to be the most successful ways to get a piece of land to produce people food calories. But flip it on its head. Now let's look at the question of fertility, because we said we have to do 2 things: produce food for now, fertility for food for tomorrow. How do those 3 landscape uses produce fertility? Well, we see an opposite pattern. Tillage destroys fertility. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if it's getting used up in a plant, but tillage reduces the fertility of a piece of soil. Permanent plantings like trees and vines can typically be assisted a little and maintain their fertility or grow slowly in fertility. But grasslands, properly managed, build soil. They build their own soil and fertility quickly, even faster than they're using them up. So they can actually restore a piece of land and then improve it. And they can go on doing that, as far as I can tell, forever and ever. Amen. So if you think, let's think about these three landscape types for a minute as buckets. We got three buckets in front of us. We've got the tilled land bucket and the permanent planting, the perennial planting bucket, and we have the grasslands bucket. And when we take anything out of the tilled lands bucket, like we're removing fertility by growing things, right? It just gets emptier. If we take things out of the orchards and vineyards bucket, they renew themselves slowly. But in the grasslands bucket, in the pasture bucket, we have a bucket that we can take out of and it will refill more than we put in it. That really matters because it means that we have one place we can go, and if we manage it properly, the energy is restored faster than we're using it. Now, you might ask yourself, like, does that really happen? Do grasslands really restore fertility like that? Well, the answer is no, not under conventional grazing management. That's the continuous grazing that your neighbor is doing when he sticks, 2 stocker steers on his back, 5 acres, and lets them just wander at will and eat what they want. So that is not going to restore fertility. Planted pastures are typically not going to restore fertility. You till and you plant them and you add fertilizer and you add herbicides and you put animals out there, and in 5 years you have to do it over again because it has not restored its own fertility. And a continuous hay meadow, cut hay, and never put anything back, that's not going to restore its own fertility. But when we manage grasslands the way God manages grasslands, then they grow in fertility. That's why there were 16 feet of topsoil in the Midwest when the Native Americans had the management of the Great Plains, because God makes soil with grass. That's called a lot of things. It's called intensive rotational grazing or mob grazing or MIG grazing or managed grazing or adaptive grazing. Those are all terms meaning grazing that imitates nature. That means ruminants that graze and leave quickly and don't come back till the grass is recovered. In nature, they do that because if you don't have sharp teeth and sharp claws and you taste good and all the wolves and lions are prowling around wanting to eat you, you bunch up with your friends and put the babies in the middle to keep them protected. And that works great. But if you're standing around with all your buddies, eating, defecating, and urinating on the ground, you better keep moving, because in a few hours, all of you have soiled that ground. So grazing, stomping, manuring, and then leaving a grasslands, leaving an area of grass to recover that's God's pattern for grazing. And when we imitate it, we also, as God does, produce fertility, for food for now and fertility for the future, which, when you think about it, solves the first problem we had when we said we have 3 kinds of land uses and one of them doesn't produce any people food at all. Because although we can't eat grass, cows turn it into people food every day, right? They can turn it into people food, animal food, like pig, chicken, dog, and cat food, and soil food, all at the same time that they're eating. This is like the miracle that didn't quite make it into Genesis. God didn't say, till the earth and subdue it, and I've given you cows, so now you're blessed forever. But he might have said it because it's so true. Now, with a grass-fed dairy cow, and I'm going to say cow from now on, and there's a couple of reasons. One is I like cows, and they are the easiest way I know of to turn grass into meat, milk, and manure. But I'm also going to say cows because I like the impact that cows have on grassland. So we have three kinds of plants that are typically forage in a pasture: grass, weeds, broadleafs that aren't grass, and briars. And of those, cows make the best use of grass, goats make the best use of briars, and sheep make good use of some of both. But briars don't regrow fast and make soil the way grass does. So I'm going to focus on grass harvest with a cow. But if you get stuck and you want to ask me a question, you can always email me about the other species. So with a grass-fed dairy cow, you can produce all the food and feed you and your animals need right on the farm. First question, what is your farm already producing? Grass, weeds, or briars? Because that's going to decide which ruminant you're going to bring in to begin with. If you're growing briars right now, you need goats whether you like them or not. Graze them for a while, they'll wipe out your briars, then you'll be able to bring in cows on your grass. But remember, you can't just put a fence around them and turn them loose. You do have to remember that you have to practice good intensive rotational grazing. So let's define that just briefly. That's short duration, visible impact, full recovery before grazing. You don't need very much land. In my neck of the woods, 2 acres for a cow will probably let you graze her year round, because even in the winter, you can graze cows on standing forage. Some of the other advantages, when you're grazing a single cow, you can graze some pretty unlikely places like the roadside and your yard and under your apple trees and hillsides and creek banks. So a very small acreage can actually still support a dairy cow if you're using those spaces. How much time does that take a day? Mostly it takes a few minutes to move fence. Sometimes it takes longer, but most days I'm moving fence for 2 sets of cows. One is about 25 cows and one is about 2 cows. And the first one takes me 10, 15 minutes, and the second one takes me about 2 minutes. And you don't need much in the way of tools. No fancy fencing. We're talking a tether, like a stake and a rope, or like portable electric fence, like you would get from Premier One, or even in a pinch, you don't have to have any land at all that you put your cow on. You can go out and mow it with the scythe, put it in a wheelbarrow, and bring it to her. So we're looking at how we can power our homesteads like ecosystems so that we don't need feed. And the first step is to harvest our grass with a ruminant. Second step, milk the cow. You need to milk her and you need to use the milk. Obviously, it's going to feed people. Raw milk is perfectly safe. When the USDA says it's going to hurt you, it's because they tested commercial milk, not your milk, and you're going to be fine. Butter and cheese making are way easier than you might have been led to think. 95 times out of 100, butter is super easy, and 5 times it'll frustrate the heck out of you. Don't worry, just keep going, because the other 95 times are the predominant number, and mostly butter's easy. And remember that your great-great-great-great-grandmothers made cheese in Stone Age cultures that didn't even have metal pots to make it in. Cheese can't be that hard to make, and it isn't. Now, here's something you may not know. Shall I talk about what pigs are for? Yes. Okay. Standard animal food in the past for farm animals, pigs and chickens, included dairy wastes. That was a standard because, 1, everybody kept cows, so your neighbors didn't need your milk. 2, there was no refrigeration, so you weren't trying to ship it to the city. And 3, it's coming in every day. So you're getting a lot of it. It's a super high quality food, but it's been made from your most abundant crop you don't even have to plant. That's your grass. So milk, although it's valuable, it's not precious in the sense of I have to save it for special uses. And it was being fed to pigs and chickens. Let's talk about why. Why are pigs in the human food stream? Because pigs convert the wastes and surpluses of human food production into very quickly reproducing, very fast weight gain, on the hoof meat storage. When you can have an animal that will take all your apple peelings and tomato skins and The chicken bones after you made stock, and every other nutrient on the farm. And I'm talking nutrients in the form of surplus and waste food calories. I'm talking about nutrients in the form of anything that comes out of your garden that you're not going to eat, including weeds, vines, stems, cores, etc. I'm talking about nutrients in the form of manure. And yes, I mean like cow, sheep, chicken manure thrown in there. Pigs are caprophages. That means they eat manure and turn it into something better. And I mean nutrients in the form of like grass and weeds, like mown grass, like when you get a thistle patch and you want to mow it down. All of the things that we're now told should go on your compost pile. Nobody was, the reason why compost seems like a new fashionable thing in the last 50 years is it kind of is, because everybody prior to that time knew that if you had a spare nutrient, you fed it to a pig and let the pig compost it. There's no faster way of composting anything than running it through the guts of a pig first, and the pig will turn part of it into bacon. That's a win-win. Milk is the surplus that you can feed a pig, and then you can be sure it got good nutrition. Here's a little known fact. If you can direct several gallons of milk, 2, 3, 4, 5 or more, to your pig pen every week, you can be certain that that pig's protein intake is adequate for even like standard weight gain. I'm not going to tell you that you're going to fatten a pig on farm waste in the 5.5 months that you can raise out a fast slaughter hog on commercial grain, but you'll grow a slower, healthier, more tasty animal. Slow meat is higher in nutrients and tastier than fast meat. You can grow that animal in say 8 to 12 months on your farm. This is fattening a pig. And you will know, at 2 o'clock in the morning when you think, do I really know what I'm doing? Is that pig getting enough nutrients? If you know that your waste milk, whey, buttermilk, cheese scraps, whatever, are going down to your pig, you can go back to sleep knowing that your pig is being well fed. And that's been just a standard of human knowledge for a long time, that milk surpluses in the pig bucket are your guarantee of high quality pig food. Now, let's look at chickens for a minute. They, like pigs and like us, are omnivores. They eat what we eat, meaning plants and animal foods, but they eat a lot of things that we wouldn't eat, like spilled grain and bugs and seeds and stuff. And we all know, if we've tried it, you can actually keep a free range flock that can scrap for itself, right? You can run your chickens free range, and at least during the growing season, they can keep themselves alive just fine. But if you don't boost their diet with some protein and some calcium, they can't lay very many eggs for you. Guess what milk is? Protein and calcium. Milk has been a standard chicken feed supplement. I don't mean in bought feeds. I mean your great-great-grandma put waste milk, usually they would call it clabber, meaning it was thick milk, like yogurt is clabber. Why did they feed the chicken clabber instead of liquid milk? Well, primarily because if you don't refrigerate it, then it's going to be clabber. So grandma would put her milk in her milk pans and wait 12 to 24 hours and then skim the thick cream off the top. And if the weather was warm, the milk in the bottom is going to clabber almost instantly. And that's what she was feeding to her chickens. Another little fact. So if you think 3 quarts of milk a day for a pig, and you don't really need to do that every day, but just like keep sending your waste milk down to the pig pen. 1 quart of milk a day, milk or clabber, to the chicken run is adequate protein supplement for 1 dozen large bodied laying hens. Think, your buff Brahmas and your Rhode Island Reds. 1 quart for a dozen birds, or for 2 dozen small body laying hens like leghorns, right? 1 quart is sufficient protein supplement that you can make up the rest of her diet with what you have around. On our farm, that's going to be some corn, some sorghum, maybe some sunflower seeds, greens. On your farm, it might be If you don't keep a pig, it might be all of your household scraps, and then maybe some scratch feed or corn that you've grown, corn or sorghum. What I want you to bear in mind is that chicken, to lay eggs, needs her diet supplemented with exactly what your milk is, what your cow's made out of your grass, and that's protein and calcium. And then, of course, there are your dogs and cats. On our farm, cats are rodent catchers, dogs are predator control, both hunt. We feed them a little bit of milk, and they hunt for the rest of their diet. Milk makes them happy, hunting makes them useful. So I hope you're seeing that what we're trying to do is turn your land into an ecosystem, or let's say, put our hands out to the ecosystem God has made, and in response to his Genesis chapter 1 calling, we're trying to co-manage with him, looking at him to tell us what is the nature of this animal. Pigs eat low quality, they're low quality eating omnivores. Chickens are a scratch cleanup crew that are also omnivores, and they benefit from protein and calcium supplements. We're looking at how God made them, and we're trying to, this is like the thrill of being homesteading women, right? Is that we're trying to enter into the mind of God and see what his plan was in this creation and help him do it. Because isn't that what he asked us to do from the very beginning? Isn't that our, at the fall, he didn't say, all that stuff I said about your mission before you sinned? Well, forget that. Now you're going to go out and be homotechnologist and invent machines to stop yourself from having to work. No, his mandate is still our mandate. We're less gifted at it, I'll grant you, but it's still our mandate. And when we look to his creation and use our eyes and use prayer to ask him, what is his plan? And then we help that plan. What we find out is that food and health and fertility for the future are the result. Food for us, for our animals, health for us, for our animals, fertility for future eating for us and our animals. So that's sort of your ecosystem picture. Let's go further into how we turn that into food. You're raising animals, eat them. Eat your surplus males. Eat your cold quality females, the ones you don't want to breed. Learn how to butcher, salt, and smoke. These are all overcomplicated. They're especially overcomplicated if you like to look at too many really beautiful, fun to watch YouTube videos. Most of us were homesteaders, right? Most of us have butchered a chicken, and we can even remember that we learned, oh, that's not nearly as scary and difficult and fraught as I thought it was going to be. And butchering large animals is the same way. It really helps especially to learn to butcher large animals because it's so hard to get butchering dates at the local custom slaughterhouse now. So learn to butcher, to salt, and to smoke. Those are way easier than they're usually made to look. Another step, plant a good subsistence garden. This is for feeding people and animals. What do we grow in our gardens? Fresh vegetables, vegetables for fresh use. Those are seasonal. We grow a lot of potatoes. That's our primary starch, and it's a storage vegetable. I don't think I have to tell homesteaders that sprouted potatoes are not bad potatoes. You rub the sprouts off and you eat them anyway. We harvest potatoes in July, and we're still eating we'll be eating the last year's potatoes right up until we harvest the next set of potatoes in July. Potatoes are the most productive plant you can grow. It's going to grow you the most food per acre except for corn, and the most protein per acre except for beans. You can grow them with nothing but a stick to make a hole in the ground, and they store passively. They are incredibly valuable as the basic starch for a homestead, and all your extras can get fed to the pigs along with other animal feed crops. So we tend to grow a lot of roots, particularly fodder beets, mango wurzels, great big beet, be 15, 20 pounds. We grow a lot of squash for people and for animals. And we grow the easy grain crops. Those are the ones that don't require special equipment for harvest and processing. Corn is the easiest. Sorghum is also very easy. So planting a good subsistence garden where we focus on things that are to be used on the farm, that are easy to grow and highly productive and store passively. That's important. I'm looking at my time, Nancy, and it looks like I have 15 minutes left. So I'm going to keep going just on this vein. So our steps toward making our farms into ecosystems and making them feed themselves. We've identified what our primary crop is. It's volunteer, it's biodiverse, it's perennial, it can be harvested year round. That's grass. We can't eat it, but ruminants will turn it into meat, milk, and manure so that we can eat the first two and let the last one fertilize our grass so that we can go on doing this better every year. We figured out that we can use the milk to feed the people and our other omnivore farm animals like pigs and chickens. Another thing we can use for pigs and chickens that maybe sometimes gets overlooked is, remember I said any nutrient on the farm can go through the pig pen. The one exception is don't feed pigs to pigs. But butchering wastes are great pig feed. So when we butcher sheep, cows, chickens, when I butcher chickens, the feet, if I don't use them, the heads, if I don't use them, or even after I've used them, you boil them and then you're done. Feet, heads, feathers, and guts are all going into the pig pen. Usually what I'll do is dump all the guts into the scald water when I'm done butchering chickens, and feed that to the pigs. Scald water was full of nutrients too. And dump the feathers, heads, and feet in. The pigs eat all of that. When we butcher cows, the parts that aren't going to be, the soft parts that aren't going to be used by humans are going to go in the pig pen, and the pigs will eat it. Sheep, the same. Chickens get, they get pig guts, so that's where the soft part, the non-human food parts of a pig goes in the chicken pen. Usually, we'll run them through the grinder last thing after we've made ground pork. We'll run all those soft parts through the grinder, put them in tubs, small tubs, stick them in the freezer, and feed them out a bit at a time to the chickens for protein. Other wastes that are valuable on the farm. And there's no such thing as waste. In God's economy, everything is food for something else. So anything that seems like a waste at one stage simply needs to be moved down one step so that we see how now it's an input to something else. There is no such thing as waste. All surpluses are valued. If we don't feed them to the animals, we might be retaining them for garden fertility. So for example, although if I'm cleaning out the sheep pen after lambing, that sheep manure is going to go in the pig pen first. If I need to, if I run the sheep over my alfalfa patch, they're going to apply their waste directly. We rotate our animals to spread manure. Let's see, some other things we do. We keep our pigs in a pen. Why? Because, well, 2 reasons. 3 reasons. Pigs are murder on a pasture. The whole idea of pastured pigs, pigs in woods make sense. Pigs on a pasture is pretty destructive of pasture. But the reason we keep pigs in a pen, the 2 most important reasons, is our pigs eat our waste and surpluses, and it's a lot easier to take those to the pen than to follow the pigs around in the woods with them. 2, we want soil bedding from the pig pen because we do need compost for the garden. And all our other animals, our chickens and our cows and our sheep or whatever, are out free ranging and fertilizing that way. Pigs give us an opportunity to capture bedding for compost. Remember that what we're after is an inputs-free homestead, one that doesn't have bills. That includes fertilizer. We're not going to buy fertility from off farm, so we have to find it on the farm. Another way that we feed the farm from the farm, little ways that we feed the farm from the farm. In the garden, and we keep about, I used to say, an acre in tillage, and then we got smart about how to use the GIS survey on our computer, and it looks like it's more like 3/4 of an acre. But on that 3/4 of an acre, we grow a lot of green manures and cover crops when in patches that aren't presently in food crops. That might mean a turnip crop in the spring before the corn goes in, or it might mean a buckwheat crop in the potato patch after the potatoes come out. Whatever it is, instead of just mowing it and tilling it in, we run chickens in tractors over those green manures. So take buckwheat. When we grow a buckwheat crop, we let it set seed. Then we tractor chickens over it. The chickens harvest food and incorporate the green manure into the top layer of the soil all at the same time. Saves us on chicken feed, saves us on it gives us a source of added organic matter for the garden, and it saves us work. We run our chickens in the garden in the winter for the same reason, and it means that I have no weed problem in the spring. Our farm has composting toilets. I have to admit that the new house, the rebuild after the fire, has flush toilets, but the guest house, which we lived in before this house was built, has composting toilets, and that keeps fertility on the farm, although I admit I put it on flowers and not on people food. Can we do that with the kind of time and land homesteaders have? How much land is enough? Very small parcels. An acre or two is big enough to make a homestead like we're describing. How much work is it? Well, we're all homesteaders because we like to do this work, right? It's a lifestyle choice, but our family grows all our food and all our feed, with the exceptions are luxury. So virtually all our food and all our feed, and we still all have lives. And then maybe you also wonder, is keeping a dairy cow a lot of time? Well, it's not no time, but it doesn't take very long to milk a cow. And most of the other chores that we do for her are combined with chores of another kind, like I'm going down to move fence for the cows, but I'm also collecting eggs from the chickens and feeding them. So it's hard to figure out exactly how long it takes. I'll just say it fits into a little life. So what are obstacles to this kind of ecologically sound farming and homesteading? Because people do hit snags all the time. We get emails from them and they ask about, the problems they're having. And some really common obstacles look like this. First, getting your farm out of balance, like having too many animals for the land you have, or too many animals for the food sources you have, or too many animals for the people you have to do the work. When a farm is out of balance, it will not reflect the kind of ecological health that shows us that we're doing it right, and it probably means you're buying inputs. Another common mistake is getting your pieces in the wrong place, like you're following fashion, say what you saw on YouTube, instead of nature, what you see God doing. Pigs in your pasture, an example of that for us. Yes, we know that sometimes there are Idaho pasture pigs or kunis that just graze and they don't tear up your pasture. But pigs can't digest cellulose. So they're not making the same kind of use of grass that a cow or a sheep or a goat can make of your forages, because cows, sheep, and goats are ruminants. They digest cellulose. Cellulose is 90% of your pasture plant. And so when a pig eats it, all that goes straight through his gut as fiber, and he doesn't digest it. Cows digest it. So a pig in the pasture is an example of following what you see on YouTube, even though it's not actually the pattern that you see God setting. Putting your waste in the compost pile would be another example of what I would say, getting your pieces in the wrong place. Feed them to the pigs first. You'll still have compost, but you'll get bacon too. Another big obstacle is vanity. We all want our farms to be beautiful. We want them to be cuter, tidier, bigger, more productive, more profitable than our neighbors or our best friends or the one we saw on the internet. And vanity can lead us to make choices for our farms that are expensive. like having animals we don't have feed for. Okay. Getting our values mixed up, that's one way. Selling product instead of eating it on the farm. And then lack of experience is always going to be an obstacle, but it's so fixable. Get in there and keep following the patterns you see God established for you, and you will gain that experience. So a few specifics just to close with. I said our farms feed the people and the animals. So let's look at what that really means. What do the people on our farm eat? We eat a whole lot of milk and dairy products. We make all our own butter and cheese. We can easily go through 2 gallons of milk a day with just half a dozen people in the house. We accomplish that with 2 or 3 1 or 2 all grass dairy cows that we're milking. We eat a lot of meat because when you grow grass, you can grow cows, and when you grow cows, half of them are boys, and you can eat them. So we eat a lot of beef and a lot of pork because we have a lot of waste, and so we can raise pigs. We do all our own butchering. We eat a little bit of chicken, but we don't raise meat birds. We just eat cockerels. We eat a lot of potatoes. Our basic staple is potatoes, and we eat also a lot of winter squash, a lot of summer fresh vegs. We grow a lot of winter fresh vegetables, actually, and eat those, and we eat a fair amount of forage foods. We eat a little bit of grain, and our chickens eat a little bit of grain. As we get better and better at producing grains, we buy less and less chicken grain. The grain we buy about 2 bushels of wheat a year for human use, and we don't grow our own wheat because it's a pain. And if we had to, we just stop eating bread. We just eat potatoes. But you can see that our diet is clearly a function of what the farm produces. Oh, I forgot to mention eggs. We eat a lot of eggs. Our diet is a function of what the farm produces. Let's look fast at what the pigs and the chickens eat. Pigs eat our waste. Household waste, food processing waste, like when you're canning, garden waste, whenever you weed, everything you pull out of the garden can go in the pig pen, butchering waste, human food surpluses. When you're growing food for the people, you're always going to plan to have extra, and most of the time you will. And what are you going to do with it? You feed it to the pigs. And then they eat forages, as I said, and manured bedding. We match our numbers of pigs to the amount of food we have, so we don't try and keep more pigs than the farm will feed. And then what do our chickens eat? Well, if you only have a few, you can probably support them on human food scraps and a little bit of milk and free range, and they'll be fine. But if on our farm we have a few more, so we have grains that we grow, like corn, sorghum, and sunflowers. We buy a little bit of local wheat, and then we feed them, especially in the wintertime, they get some of the same foods the pigs get, like the giant fodder beets and winter squashes, like pumpkins. So I want to close with, say, 6 steps you can take toward more homestead food and feed independence. Look at what your farm's natural native crop is and bring in the ruminant that will eat that. So if you're growing briars, bring in goats. If you're growing weeds, a lot of weeds, maybe it's time for sheep. If you got weeds and grass, you can probably keep cows. Then practice good adaptive grazing. Then milk your ruminant and use the milk. Then eat your animals, your spare animals, your cull animals and your males. Learn to butcher and learn to cure the meat yourself and use the waste on the farm. Plant a good subsistence garden. Think about what will grow. Our rules for gardens are grow what will grow what you will eat, and then eat what you grow and store the rest. And then value all your surpluses and byproducts, because there is no such thing in God's economy as waste. I hope that wasn't too much in a short period of time. One thing I know from experience is that homesteading women are motivated, focused, they're listening, they're creative, they make good connections. If you have a question, I will get Nancy to put my email address where you guys can get at it and fire me questions. Is that good, Nancy?
Yes, that was excellent. I mean, there's so much information and so many things to think about. It's in, I just want to say your book that I picked up at the homesteading conference, almost everything that you went over is really included in this book. And what, although you guys have really beautiful pictures in here, I mean, you can see the information in this book is just really, really extensive. So I would say, you know, to learn more, definitely check out your website. You have a lot of resources to other like podcasts and things like that that you've talked about listed on your website, and this book and your new book, The One Cow Revolution. So a couple questions that we had from the ladies. So the first one is, how do you store the corn and sorghum?
Well, so in the past, we would bunch it. An easy way, it's not biodegradable, but an easy way to bunch corn and sorghum when you cut, or sorghum when you cut it, is bunch it with a zip tie, you know, like a cable tie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would hang it on our screened porch. And we had to really block up all the holes because we have a lot of flying squirrels in Appalachia, and at night they'd come crawl through the holes in the eaves and eat our grains. So on the back porch, we had rows and rows of sorghum, sunflower heads, and harvested corn. And if we kept the flying squirrels out, that kept it pretty well. This year, my oldest son built me, it's not quite finished, a granary, and it's like an old-fashioned wire and wood side American grain bin. It's not very big, and I anticipate that it's going to greatly increase the ease with which we harvest, store, and feed out grain. When it's a little bit more done, I hope to post a picture, because pictures do, in this case, speak louder than words. It'd be really easy for somebody to make a grain bin.
That's great. Okay. The next question we have is, and you kind of touched on this a little bit. So the question was, are you rotating all of the animals, chickens and pigs, along with the cows? So it sounds like the pigs are in just a stationary pen.
They're in a pen. Every once in a while, we put the pigs in on different garden patches to do their own self-harvest, say Jerusalem artichokes. But our soil is heavy clay, so we have to be very careful not to let the pigs on the garden for more than a day or two per spot, or they will pug it up, and it'll literally be years before we get that soil tilth back under control. Our chickens, I think the valuable thing when you think about farm animals, remember that they do work. Chickens scratch and clean up, pigs do some major soil moving. Cows are manure spreaders and urine spreaders at the same time that they're mowers and harvesters. And so you think about, where do I need that work to happen? So some of the time, like right now, my chicken flock is penned on the kitchen garden, where it will live for the winter, and it's going to shred whatever I put in there. It's going to make sure I don't grow any weeds, and it's going to manure it. Perfect job for chickens. In the summertime, some of them free range, some of them go in chicken tractors, and they do get pasture. They get rotated, but they're rotating over those green manures in my garden that I need them to knock down. And then my cows and the kids' pony, and when we had sheep, the sheep would be grazed sometimes all together, sometimes in separate groups, depending on where I needed their work to happen. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. So another question, how long does it, or did it take you to get the land to good fertility where you could still have the cow on the pasture during the winter?
So winter pasturing had way, way less to do with fertility than it did with learning to balance my numbers, so that as they grazed in late summer, I could cut out half the farm to not be grazed from, say, August to December, so that I would have the grass that grew there on that half of the farm to feed the animals in January, February, March, April. But as a matter of fact, like, we started our winter grazing at the convent, which was in absolutely terrible shape. And we started in the winter. We took a couple of steers up there. We went, well, let's see what happens if we put them out here. And we rotate them, and the forage looked terrible, but the steers looked wonderful. And at the end of the winter, they were clearly in better condition than our barn-kept, hay-fed other cows. And we thought, wait a minute, we're learning something here. What we learned was that God knows that his creatures are under greater environmental stress in the winter. Consequently, winter forage is actually higher component. It's a higher nutrient food. So standing frozen grass can be a higher nutrient food even than, say, lovely spring or summer grass, and produces high quality milk and high quality meat. So grazing improves your pasture right away. As soon as you start practicing small paddock rotated grazing, all the pasture begins to improve. And there are a bunch of reasons for that. But the important ones are things like the animals can't go around and pick off their favorite plants and kill them, and their manure and urine get dropped concentrated so they can actually do some good. It's like if you only had one wheelbarrow full of compost, would you spread it over a huge garden or put it on a small bed to get the best effect? You'd put it on the small bed, which would then produce a whole lot of food. Whereas if you spread it on the huge garden, you'd never even see any difference.
Right.
So improving pasture is largely just a matter of practicing rotational grazing. And the great thing is you don't have to know what you're doing, because any rotating is better than no rotating. And as you move them, your observation will tell you how to do it better.
And if you're in an area that you don't have grass and you have a cow and you're grazing, but that you really don't have any grass for them to graze at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're feeding, but you're still going to be achieving the same thing by feeding the cow in that one, square area where then.
You're talking about bale grazing, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you don't have grass, you're going to have to feed them.
Absolutely.
But then eventually that concentrated manure, urine and everything is going to make that soil
absolutely
fertile.
Absolutely.
So it may be more at the front end to feed that cow, but if you're just patient, I guess, and diligent.
That's exactly right. And it's typically going to be a pretty fast process. We've worked with people share pictures with us where, they've gone into, say, formerly cropped land where they're on bare soil, and they bale graze that. That is, they build paddocks to move the cow every day, but since there's no grass, they feed her hay on the ground. The waste hay, the manure, the urine, the seeds that were in the soil, the seeds that were in the hay are going to grow grass very quickly in those spaces. And we've seen it happen in very extreme conditions. And eventually we sort of scratched our heads and realized that we ourselves had done it twice on parking lots. Like we have two pastures on our two farms that are former gravel parking lots that were, just like gravel and weeds when we came there. And they're now pasture from bale grazing.
So just the other element you would need, I guess, is just to water. So if you're in a really dry climate.
If you're in a very dry climate,
you're still going to have to water behind that rotation.
Let me correct that, actually, because there's a farm in the mountains above Gallup, New Mexico. They're not irrigating, and they are growing grass where there is no grass by concentrating cow waste hay, manure, and urine in one spot, and then just moving. And it doesn't grow grass right away, but when they get their winter rains, then they get a lot of grass. So they're not watering; they're just waiting for the rain to fall.
Okay. Well, good. I think I have one more minute, so let's take one more question. So cows are not typically solo animals. What do you do to provide companions for a single cow?
That's a really great question, and I'm glad it was asked, because you'll often hear people say, but that's a herd animal, so it needs company. And there's two sides to that question. All God's living things seem to like company, and we wouldn't put cows in solitary confinement, right? Mm-hmm. It's nice that they live on homesteads or farms where there's a lot going on. Yes, cows are herd animals, but they are also domestic animals, meaning that in nature, ruminants do bunch as herds, not all ruminants, but most of them. And when we keep cows on big ranches, we tend to put them in herds. But if you put a bunch of cows into a giant pasture, they don't actually herd. They spread out most of the time. And because we have domesticated them, that means we are their herd now. Nobody ever says to a dog owner, don't you know dogs are pack animals? Why don't you have a pack? Your dog must be miserable because he doesn't live with a pack. Because we instinctively realize that we, the humans, are their pack. We are part of their biome now. They look to us. Dairy cows are like that. So a dairy cow that's visited daily or twice daily by its people, and it's got chickens pecking around, and anybody who's ever seen a dairy cow respond to a barn cat knows how interesting they think cats are. That dairy cow you wouldn't lock her in a stall with no company. But if she's out on the grass and she can see the cars going by and the birds flying around and normal life happening, she's not going to wither away or even be unhappy. There could be individuals who were cranky enough to fight it, but if you provide her company, she's not going to be suffering any more than your dog is because he doesn't have a pack to run with.
That's a great visual representation of your answer too, because everyone can relate to the domesticated dog. So
right.
I think that's great.
I think we just have to remember domestic animals are domestic.
Mm-hmm. Well, Beth, I can't thank you enough. I know the ladies that are on our chat also thank you. So much great information. It's been truly a blessing to have you with us. So again,
it's been a total pleasure. Do put our email address out there for these ladies, because we answer every email. If you ever send me an email and you don't get an answer, resend. Because we just, Sean thought I got it and I thought he got it. But I don't want anybody to quit because they got discouraged. And I would love to have more contact with these wonderful women.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you so much. So
Thanks.
That's it for tonight, ladies. We will be back for our February National Virtual Gathering on the 4th, same time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be joined by Robin Jackson, who is the author of Cheese from Scratch, and she's going to go over cheese making with us.
That's great.
Yeah, it's great. And it ties right into milking. What did you call it? Meat, milk, and manure. So we're going to address the milk next month.
That's great.
All right, you guys. Thank you so much. And we will see you